Hey, what's up, man? How you doing? We're live.
Right on. Hell yeah, let's get it.
Yeah, it's good. We almost had a whole podcast before the podcast. We'll
Yeah, it's
start.
starting to get into that flow state, that flow, like when the conversation's really rolling, So it gives getting
Yeah,
good.
it's good. What were we just talking about? The guys in the military, helping those guys in the military. But what inspired you? Because even the guys that go into the military, was there something earlier on in life that inspired you to even get in the military? Was it, trying to find a solution, helping others? Was that always part of your life?
I mean, like I think the only thing that really changes a person's life is desperation. Like real change happens out of a state of desperation when people get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that's what happened to me. Like I was like 20 years old and dropped out of college. And I was like, I was drinking and sneaking into the bars with a fake ID at 18 years old, 19 years old. And I was just living that life after high school. And my parents have been together since they were 15 years old. So I grew up in like a really small town of 300 people, population of 300. It was like a
Where's
village,
that?
Northern California,
Okay.
Trinity Center, Northern California. It's like north of Sacramento by 3 hours. But yeah, I mean, I had wanted to be an athlete, failed at that, quit on myself, went to college, then did 2 semesters, was just burning it down, drinking, and then just decided to drop out and join the military because I got sick and tired of it. I just got desperate and decided to change my life. And that put me on a whole track to actually, it caused me to like redeem myself. Like I went from quitter to one percenter. And it was like dropping out of college, quitting on myself, and then finding my footing in the military. And then that turned me onto this whole personal development and growth path where I ended up becoming an infantry officer, then Army Ranger, and then infantry commander, like I mentioned to you.
Yeah, right. We're talking about earning your way up because the word leader is getting abused. I think in the past year I've seen leader pop up everywhere, and it's just getting it's such an abused word because to be a leader, it's like you have to earn your way to be a leader. You don't just get a little bit of success and say, "Hey, I'm a leader. I'm gonna start leading all these people." And leaders have leaders as well too. That's right. And you were saying just pre-call, it's like what was it, 9 or 10 years you went through that? You had to work your way up. It wasn't just how been here for a year. Now I'm going to start commanding people.
Yeah. I mean, when I came in the military, I was like one soldier of 400,000. I was like a basic. I just did labor. I was an engineer, and pretty much everybody in the military was in charge of me. And then it was like I was on playing flag football when I showed up to the military. And then when I left back in, so I came in 2005, and then I left in 2020. And I went through a huge personal transformation. But I went from like playing flag football to become an infantry officer, like I said, and then Army Ranger and special operations. So that was like the journey from I found myself basically at 20 years old in Iraq with an existential crisis. I'm like, what the hell am I doing with my life? And I decided that I had quit on my dreams, and when I was in college and when I dropped out, I was just kind of settling, and so I decided to go after a new dream, and I put in an application to go green to gold, and it took me from 2005 to 14. So it took me 9 years just to go to the special operations selection and apply to be in the 75th Ranger Regiment. So it took me 9 years, and that was like a huge hero's journey. Working on myself, doing personal development, working on my self image. Um, Anyways, yeah, it took me 9 years just to apply, and then I got in, and there's like 1% of the military has their Ranger tab. These are the numbers. So like 1% has the Ranger tab, which is a school that you go to, and then of that, fuck, I don't even know how many people are officers. 10% of those are probably officers that have infantry officers that have Ranger tab. And then of that, maybe 1% or 10% of those go on and serve the 75th Ranger Regiment. So basically, when I was a Ranger platoon leader, there was like probably 30 or 40 other Ranger platoon leaders in the entire Army. And then I got assigned to the Bad Mothers platoon in the 5th, and we got selected to go overseas. And we were assigned to be this special operations task force. So there was two of us. There was me and another Ranger platoon leader, and we were the only two Strike Force 1 and Strike Force 2 Ranger platoon leaders in the entire Army. And we were doing some, capture kill missions. So it was like it was like playing in the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? It was crazy.
Yeah. What was your experiencing as going up in the ranks with your whoever your mentors and leaders were? Was that an easy experience, or were a lot of moments of
Yeah.
you know kind of, hey, I don't want to listen to them, but I mean, you have to in the military. It's a
Yeah,
little
I mean,
more
when I came
serious.
in, like I said, like everybody was in charge of me. The issue that I had when it comes to leadership, like the biggest thing that will stop a person from being effective is that they're just not an example to follow. So like when I was coming through, I started getting some traction. I started getting some wins in my life, and I went to through military, through basic training. I went through advanced individual training. I went to like some schools, airborne school, air assault school, and I started getting these little wins. And anytime a leader like showed up in my life that wasn't like the best, you know, like he wasn't physically fit, he wasn't intelligent, he didn't take care of himself, he was a hypocrite, he didn't follow the regulations. Like I would try to listen to him, but like it was very hard for me. I would listen to him because when he was around because he had the authority, but I never changed my behavior to be like him when I wasn't around him. You know, like real leadership happens when you're influencing somebody and you're not around. Like that's real leadership, you know. So for myself, I think one of the biggest lessons I learned as a young guy coming up through the ranks is that if you want to be an effective leader, like you have to become somebody that people want to follow.
Yeah.
Like would you follow you? Like you know, you're going through the ranks and these people are complaining about not having influence. It's like, bro, like would you actually follow yourself? Because I mean, clearly you don't. Because like if you look at you, you like clearly don't even listen to yourself. You wake up late, you eat like shit, you don't work out, you make excuses. It's like you literally don't listen to yourself, and you can't figure out why you struggle getting people to follow your lead. So, anyways, I know that sounds like fucking kind of messed up, but it's like one of the biggest things because it taught me the leaders that I had over me. They showed me what to do, but I learned a lot too to like learning what not to do. And I learned that if I wanted to be an effective leader, if I wanted people to follow my example, like I had to become somebody that was worth following. You know, and I would follow myself.
Yeah, so you have to back up your words with your actions.
Yeah, and just become somebody that you actually respect and admire. And it was like, you know, a lot of people don't respect themselves. So how can you expect other people to respect you and listen to you when you don't listen to yourself and respect yourself? You know what I'm saying?
No, exactly. I mean, that's how you can influence people without even words, just by your energy and presence. They're like, hey, there's something about this guy. It's kind of like what we were saying pre-call of, when people reach out, say, hey, we need help. I need help. It's because they see who we are and they say, hey, that thing, it's almost like an unknown thing. It sparks something inside them, a desire. They say, hey, I want that a piece of what he has. Right. So showing up and being the best example is the best way to actually do it. So you don't have to try to convince people like we were saying, right? Because people, even if you're saying words, people are gonna be able to see through that. They're gonna be able to feel. I mean, they're gonna, if they can visually see it, they're gonna be like, "Yeah, this guy's full of shit." But then they can, when they're in your presence, they can still feel it too. Like, there's no way this guy has what he's preaching. It's hypocrisy. And that's the worst kind of leadership you can have. It's going to turn a lot of people get turned. I see a lot of people get turned away from self improvement because they've engaged with hypocrites and they've led them to kind of a false place, and they get stuck and they're like, "What the fuck," you know?
Oh man, don't even get me started with like people that are online coaching people and teaching people on the exact stuff that they need help with. Like
You know
holy
what's cool about that though? I'm very optimistic, but I'm very optimistic the next 5 years because you see, I don't know if you've seen this, probably last year, 2 years, all those people are just falling apart left and right. I think
100%.
there's a cool cleansing coming, and I think that people are actually in integrity that actually offer a true service that actually helps people. I think in the next 5 years, those people are going to be at the very, very top.
Bro, when I first came into the coaching industry, that happened. It was like, you know, I was in there, I started coaching on active duty. So I was doing it and I didn't even really want to be a coach, man. I still don't even really want to be a coach. Like, I love influencing and helping people, but it's like the worst business model because you have to, like, your results are tied to somebody else's performance. That's like the
Yeah.
worst shit. It's like, I have to, my success is determined off of whether or not you do the plan. I'm like, that sucks. But it's like I have no other option. I have to do it. It's like I'm called to do it. And I became a coach from a recommendation of a mentor. I started doing it and I found tremendous fulfillment in it, happiness in it. It really lit me up. And the people that I worked with, you know, especially the beginning stages, like they were getting results. And I was like, man, this feels divine. It feels like God is putting me here to do this work because these people are they're improving their lives. They're collapsing the timelines to their goals. They're making more money. And I'm like, I guess I have to do this. But if I were to pick a business to do, I wouldn't pick coaching. I would pick something else.
No, exactly. That's funny. Yeah, somebody was asking me that yesterday about like, this is what you do. I'm like, yeah. They're like, why? And I was like, it's just something inside me. I always wanted to, like I said before, it's like I always wanted to help people live a good life, and then this is the way I help people do that. And it's like it doesn't necessarily make sense. Yes, there's a ton of money in it, but it's like it's not the quick and easy way to do it. Of course not. But it's the thing that I wake up and it drives me to be more responsible and do better, and it keeps me on my toes and keeps me always improving as well. So as much as I serve others, like this becomes a big service to myself as well and the people who help me. So it's just another link in the chain to ultimately help everybody progress and move forward. Because that's the biggest that's what we're here to do is learn, progress, and grow. And that's the thing that like just fires you up. That's like the natural high. We don't need drugs, we don't need drinking, none of that shit. It's like just helping other people and sharing that energy is, that's way more valuable than, the quick and easy other different businesses we could be doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think most the best coaches that are out there, they were coaches way before they became online coaches and had a business around coaching. They were coaching people far beyond they were making money off it. That's what happened with me. I was like, I've always been a person that tried to pick people up, and it was like I was always encouraging to the point where it was annoying, especially as I got into my own personal development. I'm like, oh my gosh, have you guys heard about limiting beliefs? Oh my God, this is crazy. I have limiting beliefs. And I wanted to tell everybody about it, and I would read these like success quotes and stuff like that. And I would run around saying all these success quotes. And because I was addicted to personal development, I'd say things like, formal education would make you a living, self education would make you a fortune, but I was broke as shit. And I'm like, just like saying all this personal development shit. And like, but the point is that like I was like that way before I had a coaching business, and I would just like try to make the leaders in my teams better. I would at them in the military. And then so I didn't really find coaching. Coaching kind of found me, right? A mentor pointed out to me, started doing it. And I saw this happen already once in the industry where you had a large influx of people getting into the coaching space. Back in like 2000, like 20, whatever, COVID happened. Everybody's trying to figure out what to do with work. All of a sudden, everybody wants to be an online coach. All this content starts coming through. And then a couple of years in, everybody starts thinning out. And then there was like another little pop. And now it's like, again, everybody's kind of going back to the workforce right now to figure out like, man, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I'm going to do something else. And me, I just can't stop doing it because it brings me so much fulfillment. I'm like, there's no way I could stop. I'm an addict to coaching because I love helping other people.
That's funny. I was at an event last night in Miami, and one of the women, she works with one of the hotels. We are talking about collaborating, and she goes, she said one of the issues about bringing coaches and people in to run events is they don't last that long. She's like, they'll come in, they'll be all excited or whatever. Then when like something happens to them, they get wiped out like super easy.
Yeah,
So
they don't have the resilience.
yeah. So it's funny, and that's what it is too. Is that's why even a coach needs resilience, and a client coming in, they need resilience too. And like, you can't teach somebody resilience. You can be there by their side, but they have to have something inside them. They've had to have gone through enough shit in their life and been able to overcome that by themselves to then prepare themselves for the next level.
100%. It's like, how are you going to lead somebody when you have their problem? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like you're trying to tell somebody what to do and lead them through an issue and be influential, but you literally have their problem. It's not going to happen, man. Like
Yeah.
focus on like just overcoming your own shit first before you start telling other people how to do it when you have it.
I think that's another reason too, because when people ask me like, where does your training come from, right? And I have my teachers and there's different leaders I'm accountable to, and yeah, they keep me on top of my stuff, so they're always progressing, always progressing. Everybody I'm helping is always progressing too. And I see a lot of these coaches, they might have whatever way that they became coaches, and they don't have anybody still helping them get better as well too. And I think that's sort of what you said too. If you have, I don't know, what's a common issue, like a relationship issue. Say if the coach sucks in relationships, they're trying to guide people. We'll get another story about this. It's funny, but they're trying to help people in relationships. It's like, well, if your relationship sucks, go seek out the person that has the best relationship you can find, and say, hey, how can you can you help me?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you see it all the time. You see people trying to lead people through relationship issues and they've been divorced 3 times. They're cheating on their girl and it's like, you're over here teaching people how to do relationships. Like, bro, like you better be telling them what not to do. I hope to God you're telling them what not to do because you're an expert at that.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I was talking to I was had a consultation with she was a relationship therapist, and I think a better title would be like anti-relationship therapist, because I'm always curious to talk about different people or helping people, and whether it's therapists or doctors, whatever it might be. And so we had this conversation. And I was talking about marriage and parenting and stuff like that. And she's like, "Well, not everybody has to get married and be a parent." I'm like, no, not necessarily, but with the spiritual stuff, you're looking at the highest potential always, and how you can take that into what you're doing to raise the state, right? So I said, yeah, like a higher potential would be to get married, would be to have kids, and that gives you more power in life. That gives you like more superpower because you have more responsibility. And then later to discover she was very she was getting very triggered about that. And I said, well, let me ask you, like, are you in a relationship? She's like, no. And it's like, then we got into like childhood trauma and stuff like that. And she was like, oh, I don't want to get trapped in a relationship. I saw my parents get trapped and I just don't want to do that. And I'm like, well, how are you leading people to better
Yes,
relationships? And I just like, what the fuck?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said. I think that people are human bullshit detectors, though. Like people that fake it for a certain amount of time, they're not going to make it. You know, they're not going to make it through the industry. They're not going to be effective leaders. And the best thing that we can all do is just try to like be an example of what we're teaching, speak and teach, and lead from results. Like lead from results. That's such a good lesson. Like if you're, a leader at work and leaders in the military, leaders in the workforce, doesn't matter, leaders in business, you're never going to hold somebody more accountable than the level that you hold yourself accountable. So like if you wake up late, if you eat like shit, if you cut out early, if you cut corners every step of the way, you will never have somebody that's at the same level as you or just above you that you're going to hold more accountable. It's like not going to happen. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to have the internal intestinal fortitude to tell somebody that's more disciplined to you to be more disciplined. It just won't. You can only hold them accountable to the level that you're holding them to, or holding yourself to.
Yeah. That's interesting though, because the accountability. Well, that's another thing I was going to ask you with back in the military though, and the accountability and having leaders and mentors, because I'm sure there were key ones that really did inspire you to keep pushing and driving forward. Because
Yeah.
there's there's many moments on any path where you just want to give up, you want to quit, and there's always that. Maybe it's two, maybe it's three people that are able to step in and keep pulling you forward, or maybe you clash with them at some point. Was that your experience with that?
Yeah, I mean, with mentorship, I mean, the first mentor that I really had that actually got me into the army, I was trying to, he was the recruiter. So the recruiter brought me into the army, right? But before he was my recruiter, he recruited my best friend and my girlfriend and he brought them into the army. And I would like try to dodge that guy. I want nothing to do with him. But then when I got to a spot where I was desperate and I needed help, guess who I called? This guy that brought my best friend and took my best friend and my girlfriend away from me and put him into the military. I called him and I was like, hey, I need some help. And he signed me up. So he used to piss me off too. I hated that guy. I was like, you're so
Yeah.
annoying. He actually was somebody later on that became extended a helping hand to me. And then I mean, the biggest thing the mentorship did for me in the military is like whenever I had the most amount of doubt, whenever I was like unsure, it felt like every single time that the mentor would arrive and kind of like keep me on track. And I remember, like, I mean, there was a time in the military where I was suicidal. Came back from a deployment, had a gun in one hand, bottle of whiskey in the other hand. I just got back from a deployment where like it was very kinetic. I was having night terrors, seeing blood and guts when I was sleeping. I was seeing dead bodies when I was sleeping, and I would wake up with those type of like dreams and shit. And I was away from my wife, and I was sleeping in an apartment, and I was like suicidal. I was dealing with some survivor's guilt. I was dealing with post traumatic stress, and I almost took my life. And I started working on myself. And after I started doing that, I started reading books like The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, and I started working on my habits. I picked up books like You're a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero, and I started learning about finances. I picked up books like the book Focus about following. It's all about like flow state, being in flow state. So I started reading these books and Subliminal, like this one about your subconscious mind, and I started applying them. And that personal development led me to a mentor. And when I needed somebody to help me take the next step, I paid this guy to work with me, and he ended up being trained in person and mentored by Zig Ziglar. So before the internet, my mentor and Zig used to meet every single week for almost 2 years. And Zig taught him all the teachings Zig taught him a bunch of teachings on personal development, life success, and he passed all that stuff down to me. And it was like a big missing link in my life because I had succeeded high in the military. I had applied personal development and professional development to my career, but my life was a shit show. So when I got this mentor, he basically helped me fix all the other areas of my life that were jacked up. And that's when I found a deeper spiritual connection. I found more fulfillment outside of work. I started strengthening my relationships with other people. And my whole life started actually progressing and I felt good again. There was times in the military though, like where I had like leaders that I was very fortunate, but like the ones that were like hypocritical, I learned a lot from those guys. Like there was this guy that like he was he knew the doctrine, he knew the rules, but I remember he would just be the polar opposite of it. He was like the opposite of the rules. And I remember he would try to tell me what to do, and I would just get so fucking mad. And I got counseled by him one time in Iraq. And so I had a lot of beef with some of the leaders, but I was very fortunate that like I had a lot of great ones that I found, and then I gravitated towards subconsciously. I just wanted to be around excellent people, and I would just pick up their habits, their mannerisms, and just start applying those to my life, and it helped out a lot.
How'd you deal with the ones you didn't like that were ahead of you at the time? Because sometimes you have to bite your tongue, right?
Well, I mean, I tried, but it's like,
Yeah.
when you get to a level, especially when you're a guy in your 20s, like when you're a male in your 20s, you think you know everything. And then on top of that, the military doesn't want you to be insecure, right? They want you to be confident. So they build you up to becoming confident. So now all of a sudden you have like a confident, ego driven, testosterone filled guy in his 20s that is getting told not to do something by somebody that's a hypocrite. Like that's not going to go over well. You know what I'm saying? Like that was, that was me. So I didn't have the maturity at first. But how did I deal with it? I mean, I chose to pick and choose my battles. There was times where I bit my tongue, and then there was times where, I spoke up and I caused some problems in the team, and I got counseled for it and reprimanded. And yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like there's no real clear answer there other than just I don't think I went about any of that right. The ones that I had, like there was this one time there was this guy, to put into context, this guy had been in the military probably like 10 years. I think I had been in like 3 years, and he was an officer, so he had 10 years of military experience, plus he had another 4 years of college where he was in an ROTC program, so 14 years he's in this profession, and I'm in 3. And he makes a correction towards me. Like I remember I was over by the gym and I had my patrol cap. um, it was on and cocked back, and what you're not supposed to do. It's supposed to be straight, parallel to the ground. And if you're underneath cover, your hat is actually supposed to be off. It's almost like eating at dinner with a hat on. In some places, that's disrespectful, right? So in the military, it's against rules. You can't have your hat on underneath like cover. So he goes out of his way to come correct me outside the gym, and he outranks me. And but I have an attitude, and he tells me to fix my hat, and I argue with him right there. I'm just like, oh, I'm under. He tells me to take it off because I'm undercover. But I tell him, I said that's not actual cover. It's like a canopy. I'm like, I don't have to like take my hat off because there's holes in that canopy, and it's not against the regulation. So I'm like pushing back against this guy, and I'm not, standing at like attention like I'm supposed to, and I'm going back and forth with him. And he ends up calling my chain of command, and there's all types of like shit that happened with it. But the point is that I had a little bit of an attitude problem, and but the biggest issue that I had was that these guys that were trying to correct me, like this guy, I just didn't respect them, and I mean that with humility today, and I don't mean that out of disrespect. They weren't a good example for me. Like when I looked at them, the guy in his uniform, he looked like a pear. You know what I'm saying? Like he had the little tiny shoulders, big beer belly, and his uniform fit like I didn't want to be the guy. And I'm like in a spot mentally, and this is 20-year-old guys, like got 20-year-old guys that are, in a profession where they want to compete and they want to win. When another guy comes up and tells you what to do, the first thing that you're going to do is ask yourself, why the fuck should I listen to you? Like you're thinking that subconsciously. And I'm not saying I handled it the right way, but I'm saying that if you want to be an effective leader, the people I did listen to were people that I looked at and I respected and I admired. And in that case, I was super coachable. Tell me what to do. I'm ready to listen, you know?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What were some of the lessons you learned by the people that you didn't respect necessarily or didn't want to follow? Because
Yeah. I mean,
I'm sure there's still times where somebody corrects you and you're like, hey, fuck you. But then eventually you're like, okay, I can see where the good is and what they're trying to do.
yeah. I mean, there was one, I mean, a lot of it had to do with regulation. Like I got corrected out of everything that I got corrected for when I was in the military or reprimanded, it was always for not following some sort of rule. Like I got to this point where after you quit on yourself, because this is what happened to me. I quit on myself, and then I start getting some momentum back, and I start getting that belief in myself, so it kind of started going to my head. I go through basic training, AIT. I start going through school, and all these like accolades and all this winning kind of starts getting to my head, and I start thinking I'm fucking cool. You know what I'm saying? And I
Yeah.
really haven't done shit. And but the point is that especially, and then when you deploy, you come back from a deployment thinking that you're a rock star too. Like you just survived a fucking war zone. And, like you're like, all right. So the point is that, there's a fine line between arrogance and confidence.
Hmm.
Confidence is really or arrogance is really when you shut out other people. Confidence is believing in yourself, and confidence is a result. So confidence comes from putting in the work, right? Self-confidence when you put in self-work. So it's like a math equation in my mind. So I'm like, you wake up early, you're disciplined, you don't drink, you're gonna have a lot of self-confidence. But you don't listen to yourself, you fucking drink all the time, you have bad habits, and you don't follow any sort of integrity. You're not gonna have self-confidence. You might have arrogance. Arrogance meaning like you kind of ignore this problem area that you have and you try to pretend like you're something that you're not. So what I try to do, like coming through the military, is guys that when I got reprimanded, it was typically for not following rules. Generally, it was because um, of my arrogance. I had a level of arrogance to me. I learned it wasn't until I got around a real leader that my arrogance like got fixed. So I got around this guy. He had been to the Ranger Regiment. He had served as special operations, and I respected the hell out of this guy. I liked everything about it. He was the most physically fit officer I'd ever met. He was the best guy in our team, in our brigade. He was the best commanding officer in our brigade. And he had multiple deployments, highly, just not charismatic, intelligent. And he started correcting me. And when he corrected me, I listened. I listened to everything. He told me to correct my hat one time and I fixed my hat. Like my hat was not following the regulation. So to answer the question, like I said, I think if I got into trouble, it was because I was like not following regulations. And the thing that I learned from the leaders ahead of me that I wouldn't listen to, that I didn't handle so well, was I learned what they were trying to do, but I learned what I needed to do in that spot to be effective. Like I knew that I wasn't listening to them because I didn't have any respect for them. So I knew when I got in that spot, I had to lead by example in order to break through and be respected by my guys. I knew that.
That's
So
yeah, I like that. Yeah, so it pushed you to say, "Hey, this guy doesn't have that thing, but I want to step up and I want to fulfill that, or I want to fill that gap because when I get in that position, I want guys to actually respect me. I don't want to be like this." Yeah, I like that. I think that's very clear. That's awesome. So then, yeah, well, you said you've been out since 2020, right? So how have you defined success since being out of the military? Because like we were saying before, like I get guys from military as well too, and they're so used to doing things a certain way when they come back to regular life, they don't know how to gauge success because the intensity is not there. So they try to create that intensity. They try to create that feeling of success. And then, so how was that transition for you and how have you kind of reshaped what your success is now with what you're doing and, whether it's family, lifestyle?
yeah, well, I think success is just the pursuit of your potential. Like you're successful if you're pursuing your potential. Like as cheesy as that kind of sounds, it really means a lot to me. Pursuing your potential means giving your absolute best in a 24-hour time period. It means giving your best in the minute that you're in. Like right now, I'm doing this podcast with you, and I'm trying to give my best. I'm trying to be locked in, go full out, all in. And then when I lay down tonight, I want to close out the day knowing that I chased my potential and gave it my all. So if I'm doing that, I'm successful, and then the results will come. So getting out of the military for me was less about I didn't really want to be successful. I wanted to be impactful. I wanted to make a difference, and I knew I had to become somebody different in order to successfully accomplish the next chapter of my life. So for me, I started after the Ranger Regiment in this like peak of my career. I hit rock bottom. I got some mentorship. I was still in the military. I went on to another deployment. I was an infantry commander. I had 130 soldiers underneath my leadership. I did the fourth deployment. I came back, and then I was kind of soul searching. I decided to run 100 miles. I signed up on a Sunday. 6 days later, I went out to the Colorado Rockies and I ran 100 miles in the Rockies and basically did a suicide mission. Went out to fucking kill myself.
How much training do you have before that?
None. I was sitting on my couch eating when I signed up for the race. It was the
I've done that
stupidest.
before.
Oh,
I
it
didn't
was.
do I didn't do 100. I did a marathon one time. I signed up a week before. I'm like, I just need to do something to feel successful.
Yeah, exactly.
I was
And
just
it
beat
was
up
like,
afterwards.
yeah, so I was one of those. And I was just like laying on my couch eating, looking at Cameron Haynes on the internet, him running ultra marathons. Like he's running a marathon every day and I'm like, I'm going to do that one day. Or I'll run a 100 miler one day and I'm like eating and laying there being lazy. And I'm like, bro, if you're going to say you're going to do something like that, you're going to take action. So I signed up, I do it. And anyways, that race was like life changing. My spirit carried me through that whole race. My body died on that race. My mind carried me through that race. Went to some of the darkest place mentally and physically that I've ever been in my life. And when I came out, I realized it was time for me to get out of the military. And I had already been coaching, and I realized that what was really important to me in life was making a difference. And in order to do that, I had to leave the military because the military was restricting my influence, right? I could only impact a certain number of people while I was in. So I got out and I'm like, I'm going to do this full time. And I was in since then. So then COVID hit. So 2020 was my full time, first year full time in business. Up to this point, I just done side hustles and stuff. So 2020 hits, I'm out of the military, smashes all of us. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And I just kept moving forward. So I ended up really working on what helped me transition out of the military was changing my identity. So I knew like the military, I had achieved a certain level, but who I was at my core was not who I was when I wore the uniform. I wasn't a soldier. Jeremiah at his core, I'm not even my name. Like I did a lot of personal development and a lot of mentorship to learn that who I am as a person is not my name. It's not my occupation. I'm nothing. What I am more than anything is this energy inside of a capsule. And what I really want to do as a person is expand my energy and just experience the max amount of fulfillment that I can get in life. So I just detached myself a lot from these labels and these identities that I had created, and I recreated myself, and I became an entrepreneur. And that transition made me successful, like chasing a new identity and rebuilding myself into a new direction. So I think a lot of guys that suffer getting out of the military, they try to cling to the past identity. You know what I mean? Like they see themselves as the person, the soldier. They see themselves as the officer. They see themselves as the ranger. And when you take all that stuff away, they're like, well, fuck, who am I now?
Yeah, it's interesting because that's what progression looks like because we do think we live life to a certain level, then when it's time to go to the next level, we have to let go of like level one to get to level two and so on. And I see a lot of people struggle with that. They're comfortable in that and they're kind of an identity crisis, like, who am I? And I like what you said, it's like the bigger picture. It's like I'm energy. It's like in the spiritual path we teach you're godlike, right? So you're your own divine being. So we take principles and lessons from God and how to infuse that in our lives so we can continuously grow and progress because what's God in the universe do? Continuously grow and progress. What is our mission to do? Continuously grow and progress. But if we're holding on to those things, then eventually it's going to stop our growth and progression, and then it's going to pile up a lot of issues or anxieties or depression and stuff because it's like you said, it's an identity crisis. How was that? Was that something easier for you to let go of? Because I mean, you said before you didn't want to be a coach, and I resonate with that too because I never want to be a guide, a healer, none of this stuff. I was like, yeah, it's I want to do the cool stuff. I want to just make a bunch of money and do like whatever. But it was funny because no matter what I tried, like it just kept pushing me towards what I was supposed to do anyway, right? So it's
Yeah.
like the less I fought it, the more it actually started working, the more I actually enjoyed it, and the things I said I'd never ever do are the things I'm not doing.
Yeah. I mean, what you resist persists, right? Like that's the whole saying. And
Hmm.
my mentor suggested that I get into the coaching space just because like one, I had a pretty significant personal transformation, small town kid, success, all that type of shit. And then two, because my resume in the military, I had a good track record of leadership in the military. I had performed well there. So he was like, hey, take all this and apply it to building your own little business. The biggest thing that I wanted to do, which is why he pointed me towards coaching, was I told him, I said, like, I move so much. I need to be able to work from anywhere. Like the military moved me. I'm like, I want a business because one day I want to do something outside of the military. And I was like, I'm very like, I want to be an entrepreneur. Like that's my next thing, but I don't want to leave the military yet. So I'm like, I need some ideas on how to like build a business that I can do anywhere in the world. I was like, I've tried day trading stocks. I did that for 3 or 4 years. I built a drop shipping company. I built a map board company. I had this app that I built and I was doing all these things, but every time I started building them, I'm like, man, in order for me to really stay and be excellent at any of these, I need to be grounded. Like I can't keep changing time zones and trying to trade the open market when I'm still in the military. 1 minute the market opens at 5 o'clock in the morning. The next minute the market opens at 7 o'clock in the morning. The next minute it's 9 o'clock. It's like it's so next minute I'm in the middle of work and I can't even trade the open. So I'm like, I told him, I was like, I've been trying for like 5 years to create a business that will work for me, but the military keeps moving me around, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell to do. I'm so pissed off. I'm going in circles over and over and over again, ending up empty handed. And he was like, we thought about doing online fitness products like courses and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't want to be a freaking online course guy. And he was like, well, why don't you just start with like executive coaching, like leadership coaching for people that want high performance, people that want work life balance. He's like, you should try it. And I did a little post on social media, and I wrote what he told me to write. He's like, just say you're doing a beta program where you're going to help somebody achieve their goals. And I was like, all right, hey guys, I'm doing a little beta program to help people achieve their goals. If you want to work with me, send me a DM. And I was like, I don't even know what the program is going to be. Like, I had no clue. Instantly got people interested in it. People were like, I want to work with you. And I'm like, why? Why do you want to work with me? They're like, bro, I watched your transformation. He's like, it's crazy. You went from this like party lifestyle. You went from like enlisted soldier to 1%er in the military. And not only that, this like these like this level of transformation is what they saw, and they wanted to know how to do it for themselves. And so I started teaching goal setting, achievement, personal transformation, different work life balance stuff that I learned serving in like while having a high stakes job. Right, the 75th Ranger Regiment is like, it's like being in the NFL full time. Like, it's high stress, always training. So they want to know how to win in everything while they had these demanding jobs. So I just showed them how I did it. I'm like, here's how I do my productivity. Here's how I manage my home life. Here's how I work on my fitness. Here's how I do it all. And people started hitting goals. And so when they did that, I was like, well, I guess it works. And so I just kept doing it over and over and over again. And then I had to learn everything that goes along with the business too. I had to learn, the sales process, the marketing process, and all that type of stuff. But yeah, that led me to my first speaking engagement was coaching the leaders or speaking to the leaders of $1 billion company. I had no idea what I was doing. I went in there. I had literally no idea. I never had any formal presentation, like formal speaking. I had my military experience, but I go in this room and there's probably like 50 of these guys in there. That's the top leaders of this $1 billion company. And they're having their end of year closeout. And I'm in there like, it's like I'm still on active duty, I think, at the time. And I'm having a huge identity crisis, imposter syndrome. I'm standing in front of these guys and I'm just like I feel like I'm pretending to be an entrepreneur, I'm like, I'm wearing a suit and shit. It feels so weird to me. And I remember they paid me some money or whatever, and I got done with that. And I felt like the biggest failure because of the dump that happens after you speak. I like went back to my hotel room, and it was the first time that I had done something like that. And I just felt like I messed it up so bad, and I beat myself up so bad. And then I was like, well, I got to get better at speaking. I got to get better at presenting. And that really like put me on this track of just trying to be a good coach, a good speaker, a person that's good at influence. And that took me to working with companies that do 7, 8, and 9 figures. And it all just came from really just resisting this path, listening to the call, like you said, and then failing at it and telling myself that I had to get better because I wasn't gonna like just stay in that failure.
Yeah, I like that. I tell people, like, when you work with a coach or a guide, it's like they're there to help you fail faster. They're not really helping you. It's not about giving them, like, they assume it's going to be, hey, just give me the answer to solve my problem. It's like, no, like, we're going to give you the support so you can fail faster but safely. Because then, like you said, it's like when you throw yourself in there, you're like, I've never spoke before. But then you do it, but then you can figure out, okay, well, oh, this went better than I thought. Oh, I need to work on this. And this is, you figure out those pieces that you can then fine tune to actually progress. You get a sense of reality and a starting point to say, okay, cool. I didn't die. It didn't go as bad as I thought, but it creates a path and it creates things you can actually work on rather than just kind of going real broad.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but it's never, Mike. I mean, like, I'm sure you can agree. It's like growth never comes out of the things we want to do. That's like first nature to us. Growth always comes out to those developing the second nature, the things we're like, yeah, I'd never want to speak either. We're talking about, social media and stuff. I'm like, I hate
Yeah,
social media. If it
yeah,
was,
yeah.
I'd rather just stay off social media and nobody know me and just uh, make a bunch of money. That'd be ideal. But it just kept pushing me towards that. And I was like, oh, I gotta learn this stuff. And I didn't come out of the gate just amazing. It was just, what was I was reading a book, I forget what book it was. It's Walter Wallace or something. Does like a success, some type of success book. But he
Wallace
was
Wallace.
saying, was that? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wallace. It's a funny name, so I just forget it. But one of the things I like he says is like you have to, what you were saying too. He's like, you have to put your best in every single situation. do the best also, but do the best with what you have available, right? So if you only have little available, absolutely do the best with that, because if you're able to do the best with that, you're able to do the best with a lot, and it creates that strong foundation every step of the way.
Yeah, well, I mean, people that like have a really hard time with social media, they really just suffer from fear of judgment, fear of criticism. That's like the biggest thing. Like they just put so much attention on themselves and they haven't transcended that yet. And so it's like it's a big mindset, it's a mind knot they have. And I mean, the biggest gift that I ever got through the military, because I failed a ton through the military. I failed as a leader in combat. Like, damn, bro, like that's horrible. Like people got injured underneath my leadership. At least I felt like it, and there was some things with that op that were like outside of my control, but I took responsibility from it. I took the ownership of it. We've all been in situations like that. So the only way that I've survived as a coach for the number of years that I've done it, the only way is I survived in the military. The only way that I've gotten online, the way that I've gotten online, is by callousing myself to that criticism and like by failing and pulling out the lesson. Like a lot of people love their wins, right? I actually don't love my wins as much as I love my losses. I love losses because losses actually show me where my potential is. They teach me. Like if you win, when's the last time you won and you celebrated and you were like, man, that was great. I kicked ass. Let me pick that apart and see where I could do a better job. Like most people don't do that. You win and you kind of like just ride the win, right? You spend the win. Whereas like what I got good at was like failing, finding the lesson, and then using that lesson on the next thing that I did. So like even when I went into my last Ranger op, it was a mission gone south. We went in there. This barricaded shooter was dropping grenades on me and my guys at midnight. We got in this giant gunfight. There's multiple enemy fighters inside, machine gun fires, small arms fire from the periphery. We had like 60 to 80 people out there on target, and we're all like taking contact and fighting back. And then it got so bad we had to exfil out of the op. Like we had to leave because so many guys got hurt. And that mission, like nobody died, so technically it was a success. But we got outmatched, and it was like a huge failure. So what happened? I failed, and I had survivor's guilt, which a lot of leaders go through. They go through this leadership failure and survivor's guilt type feeling where they just feel like they're the biggest piece of shit. I learned that, like, listen, dude, if I never want this type of feeling to happen again, if I never want to feel like I failed again, I have to become better. Like that's the only thing that could have happened. Like maybe the mission was a success because nobody died, but if I been better, it could have gone a different way. So I'm going to commit my life to just becoming better. And I think that mindset is really what separates people. Like this idea that after you get a win, like what average people do, they get the win and they spend it,
Blow
right?
it, fuck it
They make
up.
some money and they blow it. But like what winners do, they don't just spend the win, they reinvest it. Like it's like you were in marketing. You made some money, what'd you do? You took that money, you reinvested it back into doing some more marketing, running some more ads. And so like one of the biggest separators in life is these people that really, really win. They don't just spend the win, they reinvest the win. I'm gonna figure out, and they learn from their mistakes, they learn from the losses.
Yeah, like yeah, because I see people all the time. They, especially we're in South Florida, right? So everybody's has a big win, then they blow it, and then where they end, polarity. It's like you have a swing to the good side, and just as much as you're to the good side, you're back to where you were because of that. You don't sustain it. So what about, another thing I like to highlight, for especially because we both work with a lot of guys, responsibility. It sort of ties into what you're saying, because what motivates me is not even my personal wins. It's like other people's wins. It's like why I get up in the morning is not, if it was just me, I don't really give a shit about myself as much as I give a shit about other people. But that's what drives me to do it. It's because, like you're saying, it's like the next level. Level one, service to self. Level two is service to others. Because once you're solid, like you're saying, once you're solid, then you have the capacity to take care of other people, and then everybody progresses together. But what are some other, I guess, so I'm tripping my words, but one of the things I always highlight too is the commitment to relationships too. I see you're married, and that's something I like to talk about with the guys too, because it's something outside of themselves. It's a commitment to somebody else, which also gives them more superpower to go and be able to create. And a lot of guys that aren't married or aren't committed. I mean, if you're not committed, you're not going to get married either way, because that's just, you're have a problem with commitment. But I really try to stress the point of, hey, get your shit together, because then you should meet a wife. You should have that commitment, and that's going to lead to the next level. It's, we have life initiations, we have spiritual initiations. I say, being a parent, having, or being a husband and having kids, those are life initiations. And we have obviously spiritual path initiations. But what was that like for you? Did that feel like an up leveling to you, where you just had more power to be able to do and create and fulfill your purpose?
So I met my wife in Iraq. We were both soldiers, and we've been together for almost 20 years. You know, I met her in
Was
2000.
this the guy that stole your girlfriend, the recruiter, or different?
No, like that was the high school. I was 16 when I was dating that girl. So
Okay.
yeah, I turned 20 and 21 in Iraq. My wife was a soldier. I was a soldier, and we were there. We were in Iraq for 15 months. I saw her around, and I started like trying to like talk to her and everything. At first, like she didn't give me the time of day, but I'm like super persistent, and I was charismatic and funny at the time. So I eventually broke through, and it took me about 6 months to actually give her like for her to give me the time of the day, and then after a couple weeks we started dating, and when we got back from that deployment it was like official, boyfriend girlfriend. And so we did long distance. We've been together for it's been 18 years or so, and we're
Jeez.
closing in on 20. We've been married since 2000. I'll tell you what I've learned about marriage and being committed to one person is that not only is it it's very not only is it special and unique, but it's so cool for numerous reasons. Number one, when you find a person that you're going to spend this much time with, maybe your whole life with. I mean, me and my wife spending our whole life together, like I know some guys go through divorce, you know, but me and my wife, like the special thing about going this long together is that there's so much that happens in life. You two are the only consistent thing through it. So you have all these like shared memories, shared experiences, shared hardships, and just the level of vulnerability and trust that you have in each other, like is priceless. There's nobody else in the world that's going to be able to connect with you as an individual like your significant other when you find them. And that's what my wife has been for me. I never knew that it was going to be that special. Like I married her out of a feeling. I told my mom, I brought her, she came to my house one time after that deployment. My mom was like, "Tell me about the girl." And I instantly was like, "I think I'm going to marry her." And my mom was like, when I said that, my mom was like, when Jeremiah says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. And she's like, when he told me that, I knew he was going to marry you because he never spoke about anybody like that. And so I married her. And then what I found was one, not only is it one of the most beautiful things that you can do for yourself and how valuable it is, but the energy shift that happens when you're in a committed relationship is insane. When you make a full commitment to one person, you like cut off all distractions inside of your mind, and you actually get power from the person you're with versus giving your power to all this shit that you're chasing. Like when you're single and pursuing multiple people at the same time, dating multiple women or whatever, your energy's going a million different places. And for me, I was less successful as an entrepreneur, or even like before I was with my wife, I was less successful as a person because I was so distracted. I was always looking outside of myself. But when you're grounded like that, it gives you tremendous power on top of being like extremely priceless.
Yeah, it's like a superpower. I said, I'm not married. I have a daughter, but that was the thing too. It's like when she was born, it feels like you have superpower. It's just hard to explain. It's a feeling. It's just you cross into this new reality and things are different. You feel expanded. You have this greater capacity to put in to what you need to do, and you're more focused because you have that responsibility.
Yeah, it's the
You know.
focus for sure.
Yeah, it's just like anything else. Like even like you were saying, it's like you cut out all the distractions. Even if you're a single guy, the distractions are the women, the drinking, the drugs, the partying, the spending stupid money, whatever it is. Like it's all about what is it? It's like success is all the subtraction of stuff, and it's just channeling it right into that one thing, and like that's how you create success in that avenue. But yeah, like I said, I like talking about marriage because that's what inspires me too. I was my next step in life is I want to get married and expand my family. A lot of people are, especially now, like social media is just completely pulled that stuff apart, and it's interesting why social media is attacking relationships or there's confusion about relationships because you create the most when you have those relationships, whether it's a business partnership or a marriage. It's like that's what creates the thing is the unity there. So now you see all this confusion about masculine, feminine, and relationships, and all this like red pill crap about like psychology tricks about how to get women, and vice versa. I think it's just absolutely disgusting. Yeah, I like to just bring clarity around that and show people that have had. That's crazy. You said 20, almost 20 years, 18 years.
Yeah, closing on 20. And like I said, turned 20 and 21 in Iraq. I turned 20 years old and 21 in Iraq. So my 21st birthday was in Iraq. So I got there, I turned 20 years old, stayed there. and turned 21. Met my wife in between that, and then we stayed together. The best thing so there's like two relationship lessons I have for the last like near 20 years being with my wife. All right, number one is that the biggest thing that has helped our relationship is that we both chose to grow.
All right.
There's situations where people are going to elect for an easy path. People are going to elect for a comfortable, stable path. People are going to elect for complacency. And if both people don't, the saying you're either going to grow together or you're going to grow apart is 100% true. That doesn't mean you have to grow in the same exact direction and be the same person, but you have to grow in your own way together, in my opinion. And then the second thing is a lesson I actually learned from my neighbors. I've been obviously out of the military for a while. My neighbor had been married for 60 something years. I just moved to Florida the last couple of years, but one day I was outside by my pool and the older gentleman, he was in his 80s and apparently he was in hospice. So he had cancer and he was kind of like going through the transition of life. He was getting ready to die. But he had fell in the back of the yard and I was the only one around. And I heard this little yelling soft yelling from my pool. Help, help, help. And I thought somebody was messing around, but I go over to the fence and I see him back there laying down and he's unable to get up. So I jump the fence, I pick him up, and this is the first time I've ever interacted with the guy. And I've been here for like a couple of years at this time. And I'm just like tunnel vision, but I'd seen him in passing, but I never really interacted or whatever. So I take him in the house and I learn his story. And, it was really hard for him to get up and he was in a lot of pain. And I learned that he was in hospice. Anyways, I start talking to him. His wife comes home and I find out that they had been together for 60 some odd years. I ask them, I say, hey, what's your secret to a lasting marriage? You guys have been together for 60 years. Me and him, we're hanging out here recovering, trying to figure out if he needs to go to the hospital, but let's give him a chance to recover. He says this. He says the key to a successful marriage is to give each other space and live your own lives together. And he said, be understanding of the life that they want to live. And I said, that's solid. I like that. It just kind of goes into what I was saying about grow together in your own way. And then I asked her, Sandra, what do you think? And she said, don't be afraid to argue. And I said, well, what do you mean argue? And she said, well, a lot of good comes out of arguments. She's like, a lot of that friction will cause growth in the relationship. And then 3 or 4, maybe 5 days later, the older man, his name is Roy, he passed away. He actually died. And, the injury was just too much for him to handle. He actually broke some ribs when he fell back there and he had hurt himself previously. But I felt so blessed that I got a chance to spend the last couple of days with this guy or this moment, but days before he passed, to pass on the wisdom. And it was 60 odd years of marriage. And the success is to, give the person room, be understanding, and don't be afraid to have some arguments in the house,
Yeah.
That was
That's obviously a guy you want to listen to, right? Because you could see it and he had the results.
Yeah, well, a lot of guys are non-confrontational. A lot of. So here's the thing that I picked up on relationships is people will fight in a relationship because the other person's not meeting their values, right? Like a lot of guys will be studs, high school, college, maybe in their career, and then all of a sudden they turn into duds. They're has-beens, and the woman in their relationship will get so mad about it, they won't know how to articulate their feelings, so they'll just start nitpicking and telling them, creating fights around superficial shit like dishes, kids, whatever. But the real problem is that the guy let himself go and she doesn't respect him anymore. And not only that, but she's not really able to actually communicate what's going on inside of her. And so for the guy,
it's like a distorted way to motivate him, but that starts just wearing him down.
Exactly. And then he's so defeated and he's self-loathing that the belittling actually just makes him even worse. And he basically resigns from even trying, which actually causes the separation to start happening. So this is a very common thing. And so I find that here's one of the keys to a successful relationship is just be in great shape and be disciplined. You guys will be surprised if you guys are both in good shape. You don't let yourself turn into a sack of potatoes. I'm telling you, you will be more attracted to one another. Your energy will be better. Their energy will be better. When I was drinking all the time, my wife was not attracted to me during those times. She would roll her eyes and shit. And so maybe my fitness wasn't complete shit, but my habits were. And that she developed resentment towards that. I know she did. The point is that if you just would kind of bring this all together with what we started the podcast with, which is if you would just be a leader that you would follow, in the marriage, become the person that you would follow, a lot of the marriage issues would resolve themselves.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because the leadership, that's what attracts people to actually listen to leaders is that thing, the growth and the like you can trust somebody that you see is always improving moving forward. And I think it's the same thing with the relationship. If you're always improving moving forward, you're always going to be attracted to that person. I was talking to somebody a few days about that, but you always, if you stagnate, and I think this is maybe to tie all this relationship stuff together, it's understanding growth and progression as the focus of the relationship and giving each other space and supporting your individual growth and progression and then coming together. And then if you're continuously doing that, you're always going to be attracted to your wife. You're always going to be attracted to your husband. And then the relationship is going to be closer and closer.
Yeah. And
I,
every
I,
every 5 years or so, you're going to be a completely different person than the person that you were with. Like I was not, as we evolved, 20 years old to 25, I was a different person at 25, 30, different
yeah,
person,
yeah.
35. Every 5 years, not only am I different, but she's different too. So you got to like learn the other person as you guys grow together as well. At least that's what I've learned so far. I still feel like I'm figuring this shit out.
Yeah, the more you know, the more that you know that you don't know. It just opens up
Exactly.
more Pandora's box. Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, we covered some good stuff. So I appreciate your time, appreciate you coming on and giving those lessons. Thanks so much.
So yeah, we definitely improved some lives today. Thanks for having me.